Hey, it's Fan Fantasy here, and I cover tactical and immersive games. For this video today, I want to bring your attention to a first-person shooter called 83, which is a Cold War Gone Hot themed shooter set in 1983 in Fulda Gap and in the Soviet Union in a place called Duga. I'll have the full trailer below if you're interested in watching it, but for those who've been watching my videos, you know I've been covering armored sims and games like Gunner Heat PC and Steel Beast, and a few other tactical shooters. And recently they released a video showing off some armored action in their trailer, and if you don't know, 83 had a very interesting development as it was cancelled at one point and now brought up again. And so this game has resumed its development, but I do want to showcase to you and also talk about some of the things that I've seen in this trailer, mainly the armored stuff. And hopefully if you're one of the devs, perhaps you can answer more on this. So first of all, I do want to say we don't have much of the gameplay being shown as of this recording in June 2024, but we do know the dev team has some background with Red Orchestra, Rising Storm, and Squad. According to this article, 83 aims to be accessible, so I'm guessing it's going to be more like a Rising Storm 2 gameplay, where it leans more on the milsim side of things rather than Battlefield or Call of Duty arcadey type of shooter. Perhaps it's much more simplified than Squad. This is my guess, but we don't have a full picture or feel of the gameplay. But we do know that this is going to be more on the tactical milsim side of things. And so with this trailer, we do know that tanks and armor gameplay will be present, which is my focus on this video. So far we can see that M60s are present. Perhaps it could be the M60A1 variant, which uses a coincidence rangefinder, or it could be more of the advanced M60A3 TTS, which has a laser rangefinder and thermals. It is possible that the A3 could be here, as it was introduced in the late 70s and got more upgrades, but visually both of them do look similar. And since the game sets in 83, we won't be seeing the M1 or the M1 IP, unless things change. Further along this trailer, you can see a US soldier driving a Jeep, and then later on we see a Soviet tank, and that is a T-64. I'm guessing it's probably a T-64A, given its timeline of this game. You can see the back shot of it as well. And in the next shot of the trailer, we also see a British Jeep, which confirms that the British Army or the British Army over the Rhine will be featured in this game. And even though we don't see a chieftain in this trailer, I would expect we would see it eventually, but I'm sure fans of the chieftain would be very happy to see it. In the next shot, we do see a convoy of M60s moving in a column on a road, and we also see a Soviet soldier with an RPG, which gets a kill. We also get more action shots of firefighting with the M60s and infantry, and the last shot looks like a heavy artillery or an airstrike, but something does destroy the infantry and the M60s. So far, that's what we know about 83 and the armor reveal for it. So I do have some questions and concerns and even comments about it, which I hope to get some answers later on. And something to keep in mind is that we don't really see a lot of gameplay or how the actual game will be and how it's being played. And so because of this, I do want to bring up your attention to some of the questions that I have, and hopefully to bring up some discussion. As I mentioned before, this game aims to be realistic but accessible, and so I do wonder if the fire control systems in these tanks will be historically accurate. And both the M60A1s, which I assume will be in this game, and the T-64As do use the coincidence rangefinder. You need to range your targets, you'll have to adjust it to match the correct range, which you can see in this footage from Gunner Heat PC. Or is it going to be like Squad, where you manually range your target using the UX sights or some kind of weird default fire control systems, kind of like in BattleBit, which is obvious that their priority isn't in armored fighting vehicles. And so in the end, I do wonder how that will look like, and I think it'd be very interesting to see if they can get that right. I honestly think the T-64A and the M60A1 would be a good matchup, and perhaps even more balanced for a PvP gameplay. I also do wonder if we're getting infantry fighting vehicles like M2 Bradleys and the BMPs, or even the M113s, because those armor fighting vehicles did exist and they were quite essential to combine arms and for the infantry. Another thing I do wonder about the game are the maps, because not all terrain are suitable for tanks, especially fighting in the forested areas. As much as it is cool to see tanks in a video game, it is important to consider how they are implemented, and so maps are one of them. Maps are important because if it's all restrictive terrain or mountainous, then tanks may have a hard time supporting infantry, but also the opposite is true. If maps are too big, then infantry will be having a hard time. But seeing how it's set in the Fulda Gap, it's possible that we could see more of an open terrain and even tank-on-tank action and even mechanized infantry gameplay. Maps and terrain features could help with implementing tank tactics like berms and jockeying, which could be really fun to see how they're implemented in the PvP game mode. Again, I don't want to be too hard on them since it is only a small trailer, but what we mostly see are action shots. I wish we could have seen more of the gameplay and how vehicles work, but this is what we got so far. And back to my questions, I do wonder if tanks and IVs will be getting different ammunitions, like armor-piercing rounds against tanks, heat or HE against infantry, and will the type of ammo matter? This might get a little bit more sophisticated, but a 3BM32 is a lot different than a 3BM15 or a 5. Which also leads to another question, is how will armor ballistics and protection going to be implemented? Or is it going to be based on hit points on certain areas? Well, that this may take some time to design and implement, but for example, we do know that the front of the tank is one of the most protected parts, and it should be much more harder to hit or to damage. Or like any other T-series where if you're able to penetrate the hull, the autoloader would explode and you know what happens from there. So I'm curious of how will armor protection and ballistics be implemented, and in my opinion, being accessible doesn't mean compromising on ballistics and armor protection, but I do think it should matter if your goal is to make this game well-rounded in realism, but that's just my thoughts. And another question I have is that will there be multi-crewing, or will it be like Battlefield where a player controls a driver and a gunner? Crewing together in a tank and having commander calling out targets is what makes a tank gameplay unique, as it does take teammates to coordinate your tank together. And if there's multi-crewing, I wonder if the driver and commander can button up or button down, which will definitely help a lot on situational awareness as a tanker. But there's also a chance of getting shot by a sniper. I definitely don't expect 83 to have interior models because that just takes a lot of time to design, especially the scale of this game. Another thing to consider are the gameplay mechanics. Are there going to be some kind of limitation to how many tanks or armored fighting vehicles can exist on the map? I know that games like Squad, you can't have a full platoon of tanks or a full company of it, and that is due to the player and server size. But in this trailer, we do see about 3 M60s, so almost a platoon size. But given that there will be infantry players, we probably won't see a full company of tanks unless there's a specific armored game mode, which would be really cool to see. But in short, I do wonder if the amount of vehicles will be determined by the game mode, the map, or the server size, because it could just be 1 tank or 2 tanks, but we don't know that. Personally, I would love to see more of a combined arms, so perhaps even a platoon of tanks with infantry and APCs and IVs, but that's just my dream. I can definitely see 83 being a good combined arms PvP game if they do it right with vehicles, map design, and even balance that doesn't compromise on realism. And if this game feels like a Rising Storm or a Red Orchestra, I can definitely see myself enjoying this game, and I think it'll be beneficial for people who want to tap more into the realistic side of shooters. And as I said before, I just wanted to bring up your attention on this game and also to start a discussion and hopefully to get some more answers. But I also do want to hear from you, and what are your thoughts and what questions do you have that I haven't brought up? And if the devs do respond, I hope to cover that as well. And so my name is Fan Fantasy, and I do cover tactical and immersive games and armored sims. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. You can also check out more of my videos and gameplay as well. And as always, I'll see you in my next video.